So, well, we are here today, and I think maybe this is our third lecture, if I'm not mistaken. And by God's grace, today in our class, we'll be discussing about revised national tax policy 2017, of which this is chapter 3. If you check, the icon, study pack, that's, for taxation. That's, for the skills level. Well, I would like, to say good evening to you all, and you are welcome to JPS Online Icon Tutors. And I remain Bashir Ahmad Segir, the facilitator of this course. So I think maybe without wasting much time, let's just, start, our lectures, for today. So like I said, the title of the topic is Revised National Tax Policy 2017. So of which, if we are talking about, the national tax policy, it's like, I think maybe in the last class, we discussed about tax administration. So of which, the tax administration, it is one of the tripartites, of the tax system, that we have in Nigeria. So of which, we have about 3 tripartite, which comprises of the tax law, tax administration, and tax policy. So of which, if you're talking about, tax administration, like we discussed, in the last class, we are talking about, the tax authorities. So of which, we have various, tax authorities, at the various level. Like at the federal level, we have the Federal Inland Revenue. We have, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, that is FRS. At the state level, we have State Internal Revenue Service, while at the local government level, we have local government revenue committees. So it's like these are the tax authorities that is being saddled with responsibility, to cater for tax administration, isn't it? To cater, for tax, collection, assessment, as well as, the enforcement, of the tax law. So these are the various, tax authorities, that we have, of which, they have been saddled with the responsibility of tax administration in Nigeria at all this level of the government. So like if you take, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, like we discussed previously, there was, an establishment that was FRS, Establishment Act of 2007, yeah. So which, enacted, enacted that Federal Inland Revenue Service. So which, before is like, they were not an autonomous body. So it was after FRS, Establishment Act of 2007 was, passed into law. So that is when FRS, became an autonomous body. So of which, before, prior to that, it's like they used to be under Federal Ministry of, Finance. So of which, the chairman used to be answerable to Honorable Commissioner of Finance. So that is, for the state level, for the federal level. And at the state level, we have the State Internal Revenue Service. So which, some State Internal Revenue Service, they used to be an autonomous body. So they are not that answerable, to ministry or to the state ministry, of finance, or let's say, to be answerable to state, commissioners, of finance. Some, are autonomous, but up till now, there are some State Internal Revenue Service that, are not, autonomous. And then we have, the local government, revenue committee, of which, that local government revenue committee, like we said, it is saddled with the responsibility, of collecting the levies that are collectible, by the local government. So today, by God's grace, we'll be looking at this National Tax Policy 2017, of which, prior to advent of this revised National Tax Policy of 2017, so we used to have National Tax Policy of 2012. So without wasting much time, let's just quickly go into it. So for the introduction, the revised National Tax Policy 2017 was introduced to provide a clear framework for Nigerian tax system, ensuring fairness, equity, simplicity, and efficiency in tax administration. And it also addresses gap in 2012 tax policy, which align with international best practices and enhances revenue mobilization for sustainable development. So the reason why, it is set to be revised, National Tax Policy 2017, like I said, before this, we used to have, the National Tax Policy 2012, so of which, there were a lot of gaps. So because of those gaps, you understand, so that there was need, as in, to reverse this National Tax Policy. So that's why, we have this reverse National Tax Policy 2017. So of which, the aim is to align, our Nigerian tax system, with the international best practices and also enhances revenue mobilization for sustainable development. And you remember, we said this taxation is the only sustainable source of revenue to the government. It is the only sustainable means, of revenue to the government. So, so that is, for the introduction. And then for the objective, what are the objectives of this revised National Tax Policy 2017? So the NTP 2017 set out to achieve the following. Number one, to provide a clear framework that guides the operation and development of the Nigerian tax system. So which, just of recent, if you can remember, just of recent, what happened, in the Nigerian tax system. So we have a new Tax Reform Act 2025. So which, having that new Nigerian Tax Reform Act 2025, so it's like, we can even say that it is a kind of subset, of this revised national tax policy. So that's why, we said one of the objectives is to provide a clear framework that guides the operation and development of the Nigerian tax system. So that's why, under that, new Nigerian Tax Reform Act, we have the Nigerian Tax Act 2025, we have Nigerian Tax Administration 2025, we have, the Nigerian Revenue Service, Act 2025, and then we also have Joint Revenue Board 2025. So it's like these are the four, new acts, that we have under the new Nigerian Tax Reform Acts. So of which, the implementation, or let's say the effective date, for the implementation was set to be 1st January 2025. So that is when, it is expected as to implement, the new tax act in Nigeria. So, and then secondly is to promote voluntary compliance by taxpayers. So of which, if you can recall, based on, our previous discussion, it's like, we discussed about, voluntary asset and income declaration scheme, as well as voluntary offshore asset regularization scheme. So which all this, a tax amnesty scheme that, encourages, voluntary compliance, from the taxpayers, because it happens sometimes, there are taxpayers, that, default, they fail, to pay their tax, as at when due. Some, they even fail, to declare their income. So in that case, it's like government, under this tax amnesty scheme, they come up, with this initiative. That's by introducing, this voluntary assets income declaration scheme, BAID, which was introduced in 2017, almost the same year, that we have this revised National Tax Policy 2017. And then we'll still also have, the voluntary offshore assets regularization, scheme. So which, the aims, of having this tax amnesty scheme is just, to encourage, voluntary, compliance. So because it's like, there are some taxpayers, that, did not really declare, their income and asset, or their, their asset and income, both, inside, Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So through this scheme, it's like, they will be encouraged, I think, to declare, their income and asset, so that, it will be taxed accordingly. And all, the penalties, the interest, will be waived. So that is, for that. So it's like, one of the objectives of this revised national tax policy is just, to encourage and promote, voluntary compliance by the taxpayers. And then thirdly, to ensure that tax laws and administration are consistent with the government's socio-economic development agenda. So that's why, we have, the advent, of this new Tax Reform Act 2025. And then next one is to encourage tax system that is fair, transparent, and efficient. So that's why, it is one of the canon or principle of a good tax system, to be, fair, to everyone. So that's mean that, the taxpayers, they will be taxed based on, their capability, based on, the level of their earning. So it is not, made in such a way that, all taxpayers, is like, they will pay, the same amount, of the tax, while, they're having different, maybe level of income. So it's like, the tax system, a good tax system is made in such a way that, it will be fair, it will be transparent and efficient. And also to diversify economic revenue sources away from dependence on oil revenue. So this is another objective. So that's why, it is good, for the government and, to diversify, into other sources of, revenue. Because, taxation, cannot be the only source, source of revenue, to the government. So there is need, for the government, to diversify it into other productive sectors of the economy, like, agriculture, mining, fishing, and the rest. So that, government, will have a good number, of sources through which, it generates, revenue. And that, will really help, in reducing, dependence, on oil. Because that's why, Nigerian economy, is best described, as a monocultural economy because of the over dependence, on that, crude oil. But once, the government, diversified means through which, it will generate, income. So that will really help, in diversifying, it will really help, to build a very strong economy. And then, the next, objective of this revised national tax policy is to foster accountability and fiscal responsibility in governance. So basically, it's like these are some of the objectives of the revised National Tax Policy 2017. And then we'll also have guiding principles of the revised National Tax Policy. The tax policy is based on 6 key principles. So number 1, we have equity and fairness. We have, certainty and simplicity. We have efficiency. We have flexibility. We have sustainability, and then we have accountability. So now let us look at them one after the other, starting, with the first one. That is the equity and fairness, for it being one of the guiding, principle of the revised national tax policy. So of which, this equity and fairness is like, it is one of the canons or principles of a good tax system, as it has been highlighted, by, Adam Smith, in his book, Wealth of the Nation. So when we are talking about equity and fairness, it means that the taxpayers in similar circumstances should bear the same tax burden. So that's why, the tax system, it is made, to be a kind of, progressive. The higher the income, of course, the higher the tax, to be paid. And then the lower the income, of course, the lower the tax, to be paid to the government. So that is, the equity and the fairness. And then we also have the certainty and simplicity. So it's like the tax laws should be clear, simple, and predictable, meaning certainty. So we have to be sure that, the time, that, government will raise a kind of assessment and asking, taxpayers to pay tax. So they have to make sure that, it is certain that, when, they ask the taxpayers, can be able to pay. So there must be a kind of, certainty, and then the simplicity. So the tax laws, should be made, to be simple, and, to be made, in such a way that, they will be, understandable. So they shouldn't make, to be, cumbersome. So they should be made, to be simple, to understand, that will really help, I think, the taxpayers to even comply because of their what? Because of their simplicity. And then we'll also have, efficiency. But the efficiency, is saying that taxes should be easy to collect and administer with minimal cost. So that is, what the economy, isn't it? So it's like the amount, to be collected, as a tax, you understand, will outweigh, the cost of collection. So, but once, it happens that, the cost of collection, it is more than, the amount, collected as a tax. So in that case, we can say that that tax is very, very inefficient. And it is not, it is not, there is nothing like, productivity. And then we also have, flexibility. Flexibility, the tax system should be adapt to changing, economic conditions. So that's why, we have this new Tax Reform Act, because it is believed that maybe we have old tax laws. So those tax laws, they need to be, maybe taken away, you understand? So that, at least, we'll have, the tax laws or the tax system that will be flexible. So it shouldn't be made, to be, so rigid. So it should be made, in such a way that, it will be flexible. It can be, adaptive, to changing, the economic, economic, environment or economic conditions, as the case may be. And then we also have, the sustainability. The sustainability taxes should support long-term national development. So that's why, we have been seeing the only source of, the only, source of revenue to the government that is sustainable in nature is what is taxation, as compared to, with the other sources of revenue to the government. And then the last one, is accountability. Government should account for revenues collected and demonstrate judicious use. So meaning the government, should account, for the revenues collected and demonstrate judicious use. So the taxpayers' money, that is being collected, by the government. So it's like government need to account, for it. That is to tell, the public, or to tell, the taxpayers, this is, what we have, realized, as a tax. And this is, how we use it. So in that case, it's like, the government need to account, for the revenues collected, and almost and ensure that, the best, utilize, that taxpayers' money. So it shouldn't just be misappropriated. So it has to be put, in the best use. And then we also have, the key provision of this revised Nigerian tax policy or national tax policy 2017. So the 2017 policy introduced several reforms and recommendations. So first, let's take it, in terms of tax laws and administration. So under these tax laws and administration, it reviews and updates, obsolete, tax laws. Just like, what happens, or what happens, in this our new Tax Reform Act 2017. So it's like it came, as in, to replace those, obsolete, tax laws, the old tax laws. And then secondly, is to simplify the tax system so as, to encourage compliance. And then the next one, is to harmonize tax rate, especially, for consumption taxes, like, the the VAT, value added tax. And then, the second one, is institutional framework. So it's like another, key provision of this revised national tax policy is to strengthen the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the State Internal Revenue Service. That is through encouraging collaboration between the tax authorities, and also, to promote professionalism and integrity among tax officials. And then we also have taxpayer education and compliance. So which, through this taxpayer education and compliance, it increases taxpayer awareness and enlightenment. It encourages, voluntary compliance through incentives, like, what we have, under the voluntary asset income declaration scheme, as well as voluntary offshore asset regularization scheme. And then also, to provide simple dispute resolution mechanisms. So that is, under taxpayer education and compliance. And then the next is revenue mobilization. Another key provision, of this revised national, tax policy is to expand the tax needs to capture, the informal sector. It's like, we have many businesses that are operating under informal sector, so of which, government did not have, the record. So in that case, it's like, it just, to expand, the tax needs so as to capture, as many taxpayers as possible, especially, those that are operating within, the informal sector, of which, mostly those businesses, that are operating under informal sector is like the government did not have, the accurate, data, of those businesses. So it's like this, one of the key, provision, of this revised national tax policy is to expand, the tax net. That is by bringing, those operating under informal sector into the tax net. So, as to broaden, the tax base. And then the next one, is to improve property and consumption tax collection and also reduce over reliance on oil revenues. And then the next one, is to use of technology. You see, it's like it introduced, the modern IT system for efficient tax administration and also promote electronic filing, payment, and record keeping. So it's like basically these are some of the key provisions, of the revised Nigeria National Tax Policy 2017. That is the tax law and administration, the institutional framework, taxpayer education and compliance, and then revenue mobilization, and then use of technology. So that's why this use of technology, I can even say that it now became common to these, tax authorities, because, it's like they help, in ensuring an efficient tax administration. Like if we take, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, it's like, they have the tax promax, of which, it is used, for e-filing. We use it, to file, our returns, like VAT return, company income, company income tax, return, and the rest. So which, with this, it's like, you as a taxpayer, you don't need to walk into the FRS office. So, at the comfort, of your office, you can just, assess, that, tax promax, you file, your return without any stress. So that is, the use of, modern, technology to ensure efficient tax administration and also promote this electronic filing, payment, and record keeping. Then we also have roles of stakeholders. The policy emphasizes the role of various stakeholders. So we have various stakeholders, when it comes to taxation in Nigeria. So these, stakeholders, they comprises of the government, tax authorities, taxpayers, professional bodies, civil society, and the media. All these are the stakeholders that have, stake, in taxation in Nigeria. So let me start, with the government. So the government, is like, the role it normally plays is by creating enabling laws, policies, and provide, infrastructure. And then if you take, the tax authorities, their role, is just, to administer taxes transparently and, efficiently. And then for the taxpayers, role is just, to comply with the tax laws and keep proper records. And then for the professional bodies, like, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, all these are the professional bodies of which, they are all stakeholders when it came to taxation in Nigeria. And we also have, the civil society and media. So what role, are they expected, to play? So they are expected, to monitor and create awareness on tax matters. And then we also have the expected outcome of the revised National Tax Policy 2017. So the revised, NTP 2017 is expected to achieve the following outcomes. Number one, to increase tax revenue and reduce dependence on oil. The next one is greater, greater public confidence, greater public confidence in the tax system. So one of the outcomes, is just, to boost, the confidence or the public, confidence, in the tax system, and also enhance equity and fairness in taxation, to also improve economic growth and development through better resource allocation, to broader taxpayer base, that is including informal sector. So this is, just to, expand, the tax net by bringing, many businesses operating under informal sector, so which, government did not have their records. So it's like these are the expected, outcome of the revised National Tax Policy 2017. That is, to increase tax revenue and reduce dependence on oil, greater public confidence in tax system, enhance equity and fairness in taxation, improve economic growth and development through better resource allocation, and to broaden taxpayer base, and also include or to bring informal sector on board. So what are the challenges? The challenges facing, the revised National Tax Policy Policy 2017 include the following. Number one, resistance, from taxpayers due to weak trust in government. You see, most of the taxpayers, it's like, they lack trust. It's like, they don't really have trust, in the government, because it's like, the government, they think it's like government, is not managing, the taxpayers' money the way, they're supposed to. So in that case, it's like, there is a kind of resistance, from the taxpayers due to that weak trust in government. And then another challenge is low level of tax awareness among citizens, because sometimes, like we said, some of the taxpayers, they don't even know the importance, of paying tax to the government, and they don't even realize that, it is part of their civic, responsibility as to pay government tax. So it's like there is low level of tax awareness among, the citizens. And then the next, another challenge is inadequate infrastructure and administrative capacity. You see, it's like maybe if you take, some of these tax authorities, like, either maybe at the federal level, state, or at the local government level. So it's like they lack, infrastructure. Maybe they don't have, enough offices, or maybe they don't have working tools like computers, and other, equipment that will really help them, to to achieve, an effective, tax administration. And also, there is, corruption and inefficiency in tax administration. So which, sometimes, the compromise, among the tax official is very, very rampant, isn't it? So which, that it became, a challenge when it came to implementation of this revised National Tax Policy 2017. So it's like basically these are the major challenges in the implementation of the revised National Tax Policy 2017. And then in our conclusion, the revised National Tax Policy 2017 represents a significant step towards restructuring Nigerian tax system to align with the modern realities, and its success depends on strong political will, effective implementation, taxpayer cooperation, and collective effort of all stakeholders. Because, without, if, government, did not have, the political will, and maybe if there will be a kind of, political interference, so in that case, the government, may not, achieve, and maybe achieve those objectives being highlighted, by the national tax policy. And without, the taxpayers, cooperation, if, the taxpayers too, they did not cooperate, so in that case, it will be very, very difficult, and then, to achieve those objectives. And we also need to have, a kind of, collective effort from all the stakeholders, we have highlighted above, like the government, itself, the taxpayers, isn't it, the media, the professional bodies, all these are the stakeholders. So it's like, we need to have a kind of collective effort toward, ensuring an effective implementation of this revised National Tax Policy 2017. Hello? Hello?
Hi, sir.
Yeah, please, are we together, please? So it's like honestly, it is heavily raining, from my side. I hope it's not disturbing. So we're having a very heavy rainfall, from my side. So it's like basically it's like this is what I have for you. So please, based on this, what we discussed, if there are questions, please let's just take some few questions and then we can just call it a day. Are there questions? You remember the title of our today's lesson is we are discussing on the revised National Tax Policy 2017. So which it is this revised National Tax Policy that brought about the new Tax Reform Act 2025 that bring about the new Tax Act 2017, the tax administration, the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025, the Joint Revenue Board 2025. So it is as a result of this revised National Tax Policy 2017. So based on what we discuss is like we discuss about the objectives, the benefits, the challenges, the role of the stakeholders toward an effective implementation of this National Tax Policy 2017. So I don't know based on what we have discussed whether if there are some questions, then we can take them before we call it a day. Do we have question, please? Or maybe a comment? Let us make it, an interactive. Because as at when I've started, I've started, without anyone, on the call. So I thought maybe I was only the one, in the class. But thank God, we have about two, participants, or let's say, we have two participants, on the call. So please, based on what we discussed, are there questions, please?
No, sir.
So maybe if there are no questions, I think maybe we have to just because like I said, it is raining heavily, from my side. And if maybe in the absence of the question, I think maybe we have to end the call. So immediately after the class, I will share the material so you can just check the group so that you can just take it for your further reading. So I sincerely thank you for showing up. I know it's not easy, but thank you for finding your time to join. And most likely maybe in the next class we'll begin to take some computation. But so far it's like we are almost done with the tax administration, so which it carries about 20% weight of this taxation. So most likely in the next class we may start some computations. So thank you very much for coming, and good night.
Okay, sir. Thank you.